I'll be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions on, you called previous question. Okay, we are voting on the amendment. We're voting on to put amendment 4306 on the bill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Ayes have it.
on the amendment.
Ayes have it. Okay, we are back on House Bill 77 as amended. Okay, we have amendment number 2, which is amendment 4580. Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the members, you can see this amendment speaks for itself. It simply says that state funds shall not be utilized.
I need a motion and a second on that.
Motion.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. You're properly
State
recognized.
funds, thank you, Mr. Chairman, shall not be utilized to defend this act in judicial proceedings unless the funds are specifically appropriated for such purpose in the General Appropriation Act.
Representative Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that we owe it to our taxpayers to use every available resource to save babies' lives. I respectfully move that amendment to the table.
Okay, proper motion, properly seconded. That cuts off all debate except for the sponsor of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this question is to the sponsor. Are you aware that Tennessee is currently spending taxpayer dollars?
Cannot do that.
I cannot.
You can't ask a question. You can talk about the amendment.
Okay. No questions.
Correct.
All right. Well, the fact of the matter is that the taxpayers are spending monies now currently, taxpayer dollars, in reference to lawsuits. And that 3 states who have already banned struck down and ended up paying nearly $1 million in taxpayers' money. Mr. Chairman, if you would bear with me, and this is in reference certainly to the amendment itself, but I've received hundreds of emails over the weekend, and I'm sure many of my members have received these same emails. And if I could just read a couple of paragraphs of some of the emails, and they're pretty standards, but these emails are coming from across the state, from Knoxville to Middle Tennessee, West Tennessee, and from this particular constituent. Simply say, I urge you to oppose the unconstitutional, unsafe legislation that would ban abortions in Tennessee.
Is this on the amendment?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman. It's getting to the amendment. House Bill 77, House Bill 1029 are extreme bills that would make almost all abortions illegal in Tennessee. These bills simply go too far in inserting government into our personal and private lives. House Bill 77 would prevent most women from getting abortions as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy before many women even know they are pregnant.
Representative, I need you to stay on the amendment.
These bills are so clearly unconstitutional that it would open the door to litigation, legal wrangling, costing taxpayers more of their hard-earned money. Passing this bill would be a waste of taxpayers' resources on the divisive, unconstitutional bill. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I ask that you support this amendment and the committee support this amendment.
Thank you. We are voting on the tabling motion. All those in favor of tabling amendment 4580 say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Ayes have it. We have tabled amendment 4580. We are now on amendment number 3. It's amendment 4624. Representative Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to withdraw.
Okay. Without objection, we are withdrawing amendment 4624. We are back on House Bill 77 as amended. Representative Hill, you're recognized. Representative Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't make any negative comments about my colleague from Washington County. I'll be happy to answer any questions on the bill.
Any questions? Representative Cooper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. President Van House, could you give me a brief explanation of what your bill really does?
Representative Van Huss, you're recognized.
Yes, ma'am, I'd be happy to, and thank you for the question. House Bill 77, as amended, would ban abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected. We do so by defining what a viable pregnancy is. That is in Section 4, subsection 7, and so we're attempting to save babies' lives by saying that it's a Class C felony to commit an abortion after viability.
Representative, Mr. Chair, are you
Recognized.
stating that even in the case of rape, incest, that you're banning or prohibiting an abortion?
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am. I do not think, Mrs. Cooper, that you would think that killing babies is the right thing to do.
You mean someone who rapes a lady and they don't choose to carry that baby because the rapist has chosen whom they want, whom they have attacked. But the lady doesn't have any choice about who and what the baby is. You don't know whether they have a disease. And a lot of these folk out here doing this have not been checked by the hospital, may not know, we may not even know that they exist. And we have a health problem involved in that. You have a lady's mental capacity involved in this. After this happens to this, traumatic to you to have somebody attack you, rape you, and you become pregnant. That's not consensus. That's a criminal act. So, in my estimation, I'm not the doctor, but I am a woman, and I would not want anybody to attack me and rape me, and I become pregnant, and I can't make a choice on whether I want to carry it. That's a woman's choice. So, but this is what your bill is actually doing.
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for the questions, Representative. First of all, on a lady's choice, I believe in a woman's right to live. Second of all, and when you talk about being a woman and me not being a woman, I don't need to be a woman to know evil when I see it.
I didn't understand that. You said you don't have to do what? I didn't quite understand.
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, ma'am, I do not have to be a woman to know evil when I see it. Surely you do not want to murder babies.
But, Mr. Chair, and that's not going to be ongoing. This is my last.
Representative Cooper, you're recognized.
You know, you have to experience it yourself. You're not a woman. I agree with that. I don't know. But if you haven't experienced something, you're not a woman, like you said, you don't know. And you don't know the trauma that comes to ladies, okay? And I think that needs to be a choice by the woman who's been attacked. And we don't want, that's going to create a health problem, hospital bills, pills. Some people don't ever get over that. And they have to go to the hospital sometimes. They're under the doctor's care. That's a great expense on us. And sometimes it's going to be the state who has to pay the hospital bills. So we don't want to create something that we have to have more government money spent on something when it's not really, it's illegal as far as I'm concerned. And I think as it states in the law. And Representative, we just haven't sat down to talk about this, so I could kind of talk about specifically how it affects our women, our ladies, our mothers. And I don't think we're trying to hurt women or mothers. We want healthy children to come. We don't even know whether the child is going to be healthy or anything. And by someone unknown who's doing a criminal act, and I'm not trying to lecture you, but I wish I had time to sit down and talk with you about this so you could have a better conscience about how, and I don't know whether you're married or not, and I don't know, I don't want to get into your personal life, how any mother feels even when you have a baby or you're pregnant when it's legal. It's traumatic to the woman even when you have a baby that's a wife. So I don't know whether you thought about that or not, and whether you talked with anybody who, and I believe you may have, but it is horrific. Now, I had 3 children. I'm still suffering from that somewhat. It's tough. And by you not being a woman, you wouldn't know. You've got to take the doctor's words or the woman's, those who study, and if they're males, they don't know. Nobody knows but God. Okay? So I wish you would reconsider this and take some other language or something and redo it, because this is too harsh on any mother. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative.
Thank you. Representative Chairman here, Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again, ma'am. I do not believe that it's right to kill an innocent child.
Chairman Jernigan, you're recognized.
Thank you. Chairman Van Huss, I know you're passionate about this issue, and I'm trying to make my questions as respectful as possible, so, okay. You probably feel about Roe the way I feel about Heller case when it comes to handguns, but I know that if I were to present a bill that banned handguns in the state, you'd probably be the first one to come to me and tell me it's unconstitutional. And then you would tell me there's a court case to back it up. And you know what? You'd be right. And then if the bill passed, I'm sure the NRA would sue the state. I think we're in a similar scenario here to where if this bill passes, that we're going to be involved in another lawsuit, that this bill is going to put us into the courts once again, like we did last year with the 48-hour ban when we go to court. So I guess my question I'd like to ask you is, do you think your bill in the current form is constitutional?
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
I do.
I will, and
Chairman
okay.
Jernigan, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. And so this year, as recently, and we're only in February, that the State Supreme Court in Iowa overturned and said that their ban on the heartbeat bill was unconstitutional. Mississippi, in December, a federal judge at 15 weeks said the baby was not viable. From what I understand, that a heartbeat can be detected as early as 6 weeks. And so I would think that there's definitely going to be a challenge in court. So the viability issue, do you think, my question is, does your bill say that, and maybe I misread, but does it say that if a heartbeat's detected, that's when it's viable?
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question, Chairman Jernigan. My bill says in Section 4, subsection 7, viable and viability mean the presence of an intrauterine fetus with a heartbeat.
So that's yes. I'm sorry.
Chairman Jernigan, you're recognized.
Yes. So that's a yes?
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, the bill defines viable and viability to mean the presence of an intrauterine fetus with a heartbeat.
Okay. I have one more.
Chairman Jernigan, you're recognized.
If you'll indulge me. As far as what Representative Cooper was, the rape and incest, it does give me a little bit of a pause. I have 3 girls, and I've raised them to be independent, to be forthright, to that no boy tells them what to do, where to go, and how to do it, except for me. And I've also told them that they're in control of their body. And it bothers me that if my daughter was raped, that the government would be telling her that she would have to carry that child term. And for that reason, amongst the parts, that I think that is unconstitutional. I think that it will get struck down. And if that's your goal to get to the Supreme Court, maybe that's what it is. But it's going to it does put a burden on our taxpayers on something that has been settled law for 45 plus years. And it's not.
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
So, Chairman Van Huss, thank you for answering my questions, and I won't be able to support your bill today.
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for those comments. Chairman Jernigan, first of all, my goal with this legislation is not to get into any court. My goal with this legislation is to save babies' lives. And as far as this being established law from 1973, I wasn't around in 1973. I wasn't in politics then. I aim to fix it.
Representative Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Van Huss, I respect what you're doing, your passion in reference to this legislation. Several times you've used the word murder. You've said that continuously. Do you believe every woman that has had an abortion in this country, do you believe that was murder?
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will let you use whatever words you want to do. I'll let you opine.
No.
Representative Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, it's a legitimate question because you've used the word time and time again. And I simply wanted to know, do you think a woman that currently in this country that has had an abortion committed murder?
Representative Miller, on the bill.
Again, Mr. Chairman, these are words that he has used. He has simply said that what he's trying to do is to prevent murder. Were these not your words? Maybe not verbatim, but were these not the words that you used?
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question, Representative Miller. My aim with this legislation is to save babies' lives.
Representative Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this may be inappropriate, but have you received any requests from anyone in the audience to speak to this committee in reference to this legislation?
I have not.
Okay, thank you. May I request a roll call on the bill when we get to that point?
You can request it. I think we need 3 members. Is that right? Okay, we've got 3 hands.
Mr. Chairman, as a sponsor of the bill, I'll be happy to request a roll call vote for it.
All right. Okay. Duly noted. Representative Sexton, Chairman Sexton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Van Huss, would you say that your bill would save the life of a baby that's been conceived by 2 consenting adults that has nothing wrong with it as far as anyone knows, but it would, if it were born, it would live a normal, healthy life? Do you think your bill would save the life of that child?
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
I do, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. In light of constitutionality, this was something that was decided by the courts and not part of our founding fathers' Bill of Rights. Is that correct? when...
Chairman Van Huss, you recognized.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Chairman Sexton,
I will
you're
be...
recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry. I will be supporting your bill because I think the life of a child, whether male or female, is important. And as Ronald Reagan said one time, it's funny that only those that are alive are the ones that are against life. Thank you.
Representative Dixie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, I'm a husband of over 20 years, and I'm a father of 2 girls, 12 and 14. I would have a hard time I can't support this bill because I believe they should have choice. The choice of a woman is between her family, her physician, and God, and no one else. The government does not play a role in that. You stated earlier that you know what evil looks like. I want to see if you can find the evil in this scenario. Let's say you're a 15-year-old girl in high school who's an athlete, and you're raped by your teacher or coach, and you're feeling some shame, responsibility for the weight that prevents you from confiding in anyone, even your parents and friends. So you're trying to forget and make your life seem normal, going to class, spending time with friends, and you miss your first monthly period. And now you're terrified that you're pregnant. So you finally get the courage to buy a pregnancy test, and the result is your worst fear. You're pregnant. So by the time you go to the doctor, 6 or 7 weeks after the rape, and a fetal heartbeat is detected, Representative Van Huss, are you willing to put into law that this girl has to carry her rapist baby while trying to finish high school, abandoning her sports team, and seeing her rapist every day?
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question, Representative Dixie. You asked if I could find the evil in the scenario. I cannot, because the evil I find is what you left out. I don't believe it's right to rip an innocent baby limb from limb.
Representative Dixie, you're recognized.
In that scenario, do you imagine that she would want to finish high school? How would she succeed? What do you think the rest of her life would look like? The baby's life.
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that every single one of us, obviously, has been given the opportunity at life. And I don't want to take that away from anybody.
Representative Dixie, you're recognized.
I think that you're setting that child up for a life of hardship, as well as the mother, as well as when, are you aware that there have been instances when a rapist has been convicted, sent to prison, and released that can petition the court to get parental rights to the child?
Is that on the bill? Stay on the bill.
Okay.
Representative Dixie.
Are you aware of any medical issues that result from inbreeding, incest?
Is that on the Representative Chairman
Yes.
Van Huss?
I am aware.
Do you know what they are?
Chairman Van Huss.
I know that it's not up to me to determine the value of someone else's life.
So I take that as a no.
Chairman. Representative Dixie, you're recognized.
All right, so one last question. So basically what this bill is going to do is change the definition of viability that is established by the medical profession and supported by Roe versus Wade. Do you understand that you're changing the well-established definition of viability, which would be unconstitutional, and that would affect medical decisions by doctors in the state? How could you possibly change the definition of viability when you're not a qualified medical doctor?
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Well, first of all, I worked with folks in crafting this bill. So we define viability as a heartbeat is detected in a pregnancy.
Chairman Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Chairman Van Huss for this legislation. I do not need any pre-written, prepared remarks to read from. I'm going to simply state the facts. The facts are very simple. and that is that you have a choice with this legislation. The voters of this state voted for Amendment 1. When they voted for Amendment 1, and when Amendment 1 was upheld as through the court system, Amendment 1 of our Constitution says that the legislature, elected by the people of this state, will decide the issue of abortion. So the specious arguments about who's medically qualified to define this, that, or the other, what is happening here in this legislation and what we are debating here today is an exercise that the people of Tennessee have given us the authority to do through the state constitution. So let's be very clear about that, number one. Number two, as to the constitutionality of this legislation, we are operating under what we know at this time, in this moment, and that is the state constitution of the great state of Tennessee permits us to have this discussion and permits this legislature to decide what, if any, restrictions would be on abortion. To think that we have gotten to a place, Mr. Chairman, where we are having a debate about which life has more value, which life is more important, which life is better than another life, is sick. It is absolutely sick and twisted. All lives matter. All. Mr. Chairman, if someone rapes someone, that person should be put under the jail forever. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. What baffles this legislator and many others on this committee is, why does that same attitude then, why does that have to apply to an innocent person? In this case, the unborn child. The unborn child has not done anything wrong. The unborn child has not performed any acts of violence or malice toward their fellow man. That unborn child has done nothing wrong. That unborn child has the right to live, to survive, and hopefully, by God's grace, to thrive. The fact that we have to have prepared questions, made up scenarios, and things of that nature to try to make an emotional point on something that should be as clear as day. You have an innocent individual person, a person, black or white, male or female. And the fact that we're debating and arguing and we are deciding if we are the arbiters of life, shame on us. Shame on us for thinking that we get to decide who lives and who dies. Mr. Chairman, shame on us for thinking we get to choose who lives and who dies. This is not the Roman circus. This is the 21st century in the great state of Tennessee. Chairman Van Huss, I am proud to stand with you, to stand for life, and ultimately to stand for these innocent little boys and little girls who want nothing more than a chance to live. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized. No comments. Representative Dixie, I think you had one question. Did you have another comment or question? I think I cut you off, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I have had a comment. I have no idea where to start after that. You said that you're correct. We do not play a role in a choice that a person has. You used the word choice. We do not decide who lives and who dies. It's up to the person. And I believe this bill is aimed at restricting access to safe and legal abortion. You know, women's health and lives should not be used as political pawns. And that's what we're doing right here. That is exactly what we're doing. And if you truly believe that we have no role in this, then why is this bill even present? It makes no sense. But thank you. I appreciate you for your thought and your remarks, and I appreciate you, Representative Van Huss, for presenting your bill and having the courage to stand up for what you believe in. But I also have to do the same.
Representative Cooper, do you have another question?
Mr. Chair, thank you. There was yeah, we're sent up here as legislators to make decisions. And those laws were made during that time, basically by men, but not for this. If you know the makeup of this legislature, and I think you do, it didn't say men to make the decisions about women's lives. I take offense to that. My question is, do you have any stats about what was happening prior to Roe versus Wade? Do you have any stats or statistics on that and what was happening to our women? Lives matter. All lives matter. Even the rapists' lives matter. But is it a matter, in effect, to allow them to do whatever anything you want to do? We can't come up here and do anything we want to do. We do have God to answer to. And you let that person answer to their own God about what they do as it relates to their body. And I just want to know, do you have that any statistics that you worked with that to see why we have Roe versus Wade? That really is the question. And I appreciate your answer, Representative Van Huss.
Chairman Van Huss, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Cooper, for the question. I do look forward, if you do have statistics from pre-Roe v. Wade, I'm happy to hear those. The statistics that I do have are from 2016 TN.gov. Should this legislation be successful, we will save over 5,000 babies a year, and that's 56.5% of the babies born in Tennessee every year.
And Mr. Chair, I just want to follow up.
Representative Cooper, you're recognized.
Thank you. Do you know the health of the babies that are born, what's happening to them mentally, and how many are healthy and come out okay? It depends on that particular person, or mother, and how that baby is, when it's born, what happens to that child? And I think that's been mentioned earlier. What happens to the mother? If they come out of a poor family, especially, now they come out of a family that's well in middle class, upper class, who have funds to take care of that child, as it was mentioned by Representative Dixon, in high school or even in college. Even if they're out, it's really the woman's choice. But what happens to their mother? They go on welfare, families first. Mother's on that, the government's got to take care of the mother. The baby comes and may be ill mentally. The mother may be going into one of those states. Having a baby is just not, you just have a baby and then nothing is happening to the mother. I don't know whether you know that or not. And I was thinking that maybe you might have had some statistics or some information that explain what happens to this mother. Those mothers' lives matter first to me. And then you think about the fetus or the baby being carried long term. What happens to that whole family? Because it's going to affect them too. But basically the mother and the baby. And I wanted to know if you had information on the health, what happens in their well-being, how they got to have somewhere to live. Some parents put the children out when they get pregnant. Did you know that? And where do they go? Sometimes go to a friend if they happen to have one, or some home. They've got to be taken care of. Who's going to take care of the mother and those babies while she's carrying the baby, and then she's got to find work to take care of? Those are the kinds of things that we need to be conscious of and be concerned about. So that was my concern. If you had that kind of stats or statistics on what happens to our, and it won't happen to all of them. I'm not brushing with a broad brush of everybody. But there are instances, and I just want to know the percentage of that and what the doctors are saying, the medical people who have been trained. Now, am I making myself clear enough so you can understand what I'm saying? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chairman Van Hess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Representative Cooper, your question is a quality of life. You guys can make your own decisions. I'm not going to decide whose life is worth living and who is not. And I know my assistant does not mind me giving out her name. My assistant is disabled, and she is the best assistant we have down here. Doesn't matter who it is, I'm not going to judge whether or not somebody's life is worth taking or worth giving.
Representative Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Van Huss, where did this bill originate from?
Representative Van Hess, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know that I remember. A couple years ago, I guess it was 2 years ago now, this is the second time I've carried this piece of legislation. It's been on my heart my whole life. Again, I was not in politics in 1973. This is what's on my heart. I aim to save babies' lives.
Representative Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Van Huss, I'll be supporting this bill because I support life. But did you see the young mother with the crying child that just left the room? How can anyone hurt an innocent, defenseless child?
You have any more further questions?
Mr. Chairman, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Chairman Kumar, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Van Huss, I admire your courage for bringing this bill. You're going to get a lot of love and a lot of hate, and you will need a lot of prayer. You know, life is a gift from God, and it's really not a matter of choice. It's something that God has
Mr. Chairman,
given.
call a question.
Chairman Kumar, finish your statement, please.
Thank you. The question of viability is important because as health professionals and as a physician myself, I am called, it's one of the sad duties we perform, to pronounce a patient who has passed away. When we approach that bed, what do we do? One of the first things we do, and the important part of that pronouncement, is detecting the heartbeat. If there is no heartbeat, there is no life. It follows very easily that if there is a heartbeat, there is a life. Viability begins to me at the very earliest conception. And if given love, support, and care, that little fertilized egg is going to be a baby and a grown-up. I'm surprised at doctors or healthcare professionals who do perform an abortion, because if we go back to our basic roots, the origin of the profession was certainly to support, enhance, in every way support life. The Hippocratic Oath, if we look at the original of it, it's an extremely pro-life document. It talks about against euthanasia, and it says, in his words, original words is, I will not give pessary to a woman, because that was the form of abortion in those days. And somehow, just as we have taken our interpretation of Scripture, our basic foundations away and changed them and read them differently, somehow or the other, the basic Hippocratic Oath has been altered to the detriment of our society. Also, as health professionals, we are frequently credited with having saved lives. And sometimes I tell patients it was just a bad gallbladder. But in this situation, I want to, again, thank Chairman Van Huss for truly continuing to work and save lives, and thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chairman Van Huss. Chairman Smith, you're recognized.
Call a question.
Okay. Question has been called, seconded. Any objection to the question? Okay. Seeing no objection, clerk, please take the roll.
Representatives: Byrd. Cooper. Dixie. Gant.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Hill. Jernigan. Kumar.
Yes.
Leatherwood. Miller. Sexton of Cumberland. Sexton of Granger.
Yes.
Sherrill.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Van Huss. Vaughn. Whitson. Vice Chairman Helton.
Yes.
Chairman Terry.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 15 ayes and 4 noes.
Ayes have it. House Bill 77 passes and goes to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Committee.